The State of Crypto is presented by Tron, connecting the world to the power of cryptocurrency.
All right, it's Policy Week here at CoinDesk. Our first guest on today's show will have a heavy hand in shaping U.S. crypto policy as the chair of the newly created Subcommittee on Digital Assets, Financial Technology, and Inclusion. Joining us now is Congressman French Hill. Congressman, welcome to the show. So we just mentioned the creditor list of FTX being released. You know, the collapse of FTX has folks wondering about the transparency of exchanges. Is the federal government building cases against other major crypto exchanges such as Binance or Coinbase?
Well, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me. You know, you'll have to direct that question to the CFTC or the SEC or the Department of Justice. That's not something I've got visibility on what their assessment is there. But I do think the collapse of FTX is a clear catalyst for both Democrats and Republicans on both sides of Capitol Hill to come together and think through the right regulatory framework for digital assets. And that would include stablecoins and related, but also the idea of trading cryptocurrencies and the exchange oversight process. So I think that is a bit of a silver lining in what was a very challenging year last year for investors and consumers in the area.
Congressman Hill, congratulations. To that point, what will your subcommittee ultimately look at? Do you think that it will come to a resolution as to whether or not the CFTC or the SEC will regulate spot markets?
Yeah, I think we'll work cooperatively. You know, what challenges policy making in Washington sometimes is committee jurisdictions. And the Commodities Future Trading Commission, the CFTC, is under the Jury Committee and the House Ag Committee.
I do want to ask, in your sense, you said different products would potentially have different regulators, but of course that's not the way in which they're traded. If somebody signs on to a Coinbase account, they get a whole bunch of different cryptocurrencies. They'll get the Bitcoins and the ETHs of the world. Whether or not ETH is a security is a potential question for you here, but they also get a bunch of other coins that might go on that security side. So ultimately, which agency do you think would you prefer regulate these spot markets? Would it be the CFTC or the SEC?
Well, I think that's exactly what we're going to sort through this year in the Digital Assets Committee, as I say, working with both Ag and Senate Banking and House Financial Services. That's our responsibility to determine what that best course of action is as a part of that regulatory framework. I don't think that's clear yet, but I think we're going to work very hard on a bicameral and bipartisan basis to bring transparency to that and pick the right direction that we think will help produce innovation and yet be good for both developers, investors, and consumers in that space.
Now, you did not take money from FTX, but how will Congress move forward on crypto this year with a third of members having taken donations from senior executives of STX? Is that taint crypto donations going forward, or how they will interact with legislation related to crypto?
Yeah. I think it's true to say that was big news last year, and it's certainly a distraction. But each member has to decide who they take money from and do due diligence on that as a part of their responsibility in Congress. And part of the Southern District of New York case against FTX includes a section on FEC charges. So I think there'll be transparency around that. But I don't believe it's disqualifying to the debate in the sense that would suggest that an Energy and Commerce Committee member, doesn't take any contributions from a energy producing company in the U.S. Mm-hmm. So, but I think transparency is important. And also, did some of those members even know that the money they were being given to their campaign was from FTX? That'll be, I'm sure, a source of the investigation by the Department of Justice.
Yeah, one suspects that a person getting elected to running for office doesn't know every contributor. But you brought up this thing, we talked about it just before about whether or not it would be SEC or CFTC, but what would be the first priority of the subcommittee here? Do you think it will be stablecoins? What's kind of like on the list of to do? What's the top of the list right now? Is it going to be the stablecoins? Does that seem to be the easiest, low-hanging fruit we've been told that it is?
Yeah, good question. I do think it is a priority because in the last Congress, Maxine Waters, the then chairman of House Financial Services, and our ranking member, Patrick McHenry, who will be the chairman of this Congress, worked collaboratively on a stablecoin bill that included depths of digital assets, a role for states and the federal government, a regulatory framework for using a stablecoin as a payment token. That's work that's been done. It's extensive work. It's work that's been done also in collaboration with the executive branch. So I do think that's a starting point for the committee. But we want to also pursue in House Financial Services Committee a privacy statute federally, which I think is important to a digital future, part of the foundation of moving from an analog financial services environment to a more digital environment. And we're also going to do oversight hearings on both the regulators and some of the actions of last year so that we can learn from that and how that should impact that broader regulatory framework.
So just to zoom out for a moment, I mean, there's been so much, talk in Washington and in Congress, like we need to do something. If you sort of had a magic wand, I mean, given all the kind of drama of the past year, what do you think is the biggest priority to kind of prevent these kind of implosions going forward? I mean, if you could just sort of do one thing right now, what would it be? Because there's so many different proposals, being talked about. And I just if you could just clear away all that clutter and just do one thing, what would it be?
Well, I've spent 40 years in investments, both in venture capital and in financial management, investment management. And so transparent, accurate, timely information, I think, is really critical to the development in this market. If you don't know the value of what you're investing in or the accuracy of that ongoing valuation on a mark-to-market basis, it's very hard to make decisions in and around an investment or an innovation. So I think timely, accurate information about coins, stable coins, and related digital assets is important. So definitions and expectations on what is reported, when it's reported, and how it's reported, I think will really aid investors and consumers in the marketplace. And also, that's at the heart, in my view, of these lending losses in the industry as well. You just don't have clear transparency on ownership and value of collateral. And if you want to see financial innovation in this space, you're going to have accurate information.
But who can do that? Who can make that happen? Which agency would actually enforce that? That's the problem, right? That all makes sense, but how can we actually get from A to B?
Well, when you see the draft of the work we've done on stable coins, you'll see a clear framework for that. And that's what we need to do. But we need to see if we need to go broader than that. And you bring up the issues of exchange registration, spot markets, and futures markets. And that's also equally important. That's not addressed per se in our approach to the stable coin legislation. But I do think the stable coin approach is a model for how we approach digital assets, and it'll be the source, I know, of a lot of debate and discussion.
Can the crypto industry expect the first real crypto oversight law before the end of the year is out? And I say this acknowledging that, whatever comes out of the Crypto Assets Subcommittee or the House Financial Services Committee that you are a vice chair for may have to clear a significant hurdle from Chairman Sherrod Brown's Senate Banking Committee.
Yeah, it's a really good point. We want to do our work. We want to lead that work. We want to work collaboratively up front with Sherrod Brown and Tim Scott on the Senate Banking Committee and Debbie Stabenow and John Bozeman over on the Senate Agriculture Committee so that we have a common thinking on this, so that it's not just the House passing an idea around which the Senate doesn't either agree or have visibility on. So we're going to try to be good partners across the Capitol building in this initial set of ideas and design so that we can have a shot at legislating this year on the topic. I think the markets need it. I want to see America a leader in financial technology and distributed ledger technology in order to let people innovate on what the use cases will be. And the best way to do that is have a clear, transparent regulatory process, in my view.
Well, Congressman, we thank you for your time. Appreciate coming on the show. That was
Happy to be
Congressman
with you.
French Hill.